welcome back to my channel. This is Amber's World. If you are new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you found me, and I am so glad that you're here. And if you're not new here, well, welcome back. Today, I bring you another episode of the Black Heroes and Sheroes of Today interview series. I am so excited for you guys to hear Dr. Ofili's story and the journey that it took him to, one, getting his doctorate as well as becoming the principal of Village Oaks Elementary School. Without further ado, I present to you the Dr. Alexander Ofili. So, first question I'm going to ask you is, where are you from?
So I was originally born in Birmingham, England. That's where my dad was practicing medicine. And then we relocated to Michigan because my mom was schooling at Eastern Michigan University, which is located in Ypsilanti. And then we lived in the Ann Arbor area since then. It's been a great experience. My parents are originally from Nigeria, so I have a lot of family that's all over the world, but Michigan is definitely home.
So with all that background, could you tell us about your academic life?
Sure. Like I said, I've been in Michigan my whole life. After high school, I did my undergraduate studies at the University of Michigan, where I received a bachelor's in elementary education. And during that time, I played football at the University of Michigan. I didn't think I was going to become a teacher. I always thought that I was going to either go towards the route of law or even business. And it wasn't until we did a lot of community service work as an athlete. And then I started to do a lot of volunteer work in juvenile facilities and prisons. And I was able to really connect with a lot of the young men who people said, there's no helping these young men. And that was the moment where that light bulb went off in my head. And I had experienced so much fulfillment in those moments. And my mom was an educator, and I had a couple of other family members that were in the line of in that line of work. And I thought to myself, well, maybe this could be it. And, all those aspirations of going towards law or towards business kind of faded. And that's when I decided I was going to go into education. When I was in education, I found a lot of mentors and people that were saying, hey, Alex, you'd have more of an impact in this line of work once you start moving towards the administrative route. So I started my master's program right away, and I was 3 years in the classroom, and then I got my first assistant principal position in the middle school. I went on from there to have my master's, then I got my specialist in education, and then after my specialist, I got my PhD. And I've kind of run the gamut of positions. I was an assistant principal in a high school in an urban setting. Then I was an assistant principal in a very, very affluent middle school. And now I've landed as a elementary principal in a pretty affluent district, but it's a Title I school. So even though we're in a pretty well-to-do district, I have the lone building in the district where a lot of our families are coming that are more working class.
And I know that for specifically in pursuing education, you're basically doing the work along with doing your studies.
Yes.
Because I know that in education, it's very hands-on. You are literally interacting with people's children. And so in getting those certifications, you also have to, be doing the work, be doing the internships,
Exactly.
Getting that experience, as well as trying to pursue your education yourself. So were there any obstacles that you faced in, trying to, actually do the work as well as, pursue your education?
Well, one of the best pieces of advice that I got from my parents, and it was kind of against some of the advice that I was getting from people that I worked with, my parents said, Alex, life is going to happen. We really strongly encourage you, because you want a family, you want children, get as much of the schooling done before you start to have kids. And that's why I started a lot of my graduate work as soon as possible, because I knew that I wanted a big family, and I now have 3 children. I'm so grateful that I did a lot of my graduate studies before all the kids came, because I have a lot of colleagues who are pursuing like their doctorates, and a lot of them get to the dissertation point and then they just kind of tap out because there's just too many balls to juggle. They have too much going on with their professional responsibilities and their schooling. But one of the things I really appreciate about the graduate path that many administrators take is a lot of the professors that you work with are former superintendents or principals, and it's more of a practitioner's approach to teaching you how to be a leader. So you're dealing with people that were in the field that had that same, they were in the trenches doing a lot of the stuff that you're doing yourself. So a lot of the cohorts that I've been a part of, whether it's receiving certifications or receiving degrees, graduate degrees, I've done it with people that are in the field as well. One of the challenges that I discovered was there's not many minority leaders that have a network that work in predominantly white school districts. So when I was doing my dissertation, the topic that I had was I was exploring the experiences of minority leaders working in predominantly white schools. And it was a great topic. And the reason why is I grew really close with a lot of the people that I was interviewing. And it gave me a lot of, it kind of gave me the roadmap for what I was going to experience as I would navigate through working in the county where I work. So there was a lot of themes that came out of the study, and I built a lot of relationships. But what I also discovered was, as a minority leader, you have really unique experiences when you're leading a predominantly white staff or you're working in a predominantly white community. So when I think about the percentage of Black men specifically that are in leadership positions in the county where I work, it's very low. But when you look on a national scale, there's not many of us that are ascending to like the highest levels of leadership within school systems. And I just thought that it was a great thing for me to do for personal reasons, but I also wanted to add to the scholarly work that people could tap into that are trying to get in positions like this.
Yes, and I have to commend you because to be a Black man pursuing education, it's actually a trending subject or a trending question of like people asking, how old were you when you first got your first Black male teacher?
Yeah. Yep.
And, luckily for me, I had that experience for the first time when I was in second grade before I moved to more predominantly white institutions in my early education. And so I guess my next question to you is why do you think there is so few Black men in the education system, especially in elementary schools and middle schools?
Well, I think that's a big question, but I'll tell you that many of the colleagues and friends that I had in college that were really academically inclined, they saw that there was more of an opportunity to make a lot more money if they went into different professions. And they didn't really explore, administration as an option. They just kind of saw a teacher salary and it wasn't as appealing. Or for a lot of the ones that did go into education, they really wanted to give back and work in a community where kids look like them. My mom was a teacher in Detroit for over 25 years. And I remember when I decided I was going to be an educator, she said, I had every desire to go and work in an urban environment because I knew that there was such there was a shortage of Black men in a lot of those communities. And my mom's advice to me was, Alex, that's a very noble thing for you to do. But I want you to understand, as much as we need you in Black environments, there's a lot of kids. Well, two things. One, you have a lot of families that are moving to other communities that need you to be a voice for them and be an advocate for them. And for a lot of the teachers that you're working with, they need to see a Black strong representation of that they haven't been exposed to. So that advice really, I'm happy that I took my mom's advice because I've been so driven and committed to shining a light on some of the things that I think a lot of educators need to do in order to support the growing numbers of kids that are moving in certain environments, and really breaking some of the misconceptions that people have and the stereotypes that they have of Black men. I'm talking about my colleagues and the community members and even kids that just aren't around Black men. So that's been something that's been part of my motivation for being in the environment where I am, because there's just so few of us. But to go back to your initial question, I also think part of the reason why a lot of Black men don't go into education is because they don't see a lot of us. They don't have someone to talk to that. Because when I got my first position, it was a Black man that reached out to me and said, hey, I know you're interviewing here, but we would really love to see you come to this district. And I think more people, when they see someone that looks like them, they're more inclined to do a little bit of research or to see if it's something that appeals to them. So I think part of the problem is that there's not enough of us in the profession, and a lot of us aren't telling our story about the impact that we're having on tomorrow's leaders.
Yes. And so fast forward to now, Dr. Ofili, you are principal of Village Oaks Elementary. Mm-hmm. Could you tell me what is the best part about your career? What is the best part about being Principal Ofili to the kids? Right. What is that like?
So I get all the joy in the world from interacting with kids and being a voice for those kids that might not have a voice. But I can tell you one of the things that I take a lot of pride in is creating culturally responsive teachers, because a lot of our teachers, they are well-read, they're well-intentioned, they love kids, but a lot of times they don't recognize how they might be perpetuating or promoting certain behaviors that aren't beneficial to a certain subgroup. So for me as a Black man to come in, and not to tell people that you're wrong the way that you're doing things, but to give an insider perspective that someone might not have, I take a lot of joy in doing just that. But I can tell you, just being a role model, being a voice of a cheerleader for kids that need that, being a support for teachers that, education is not an easy profession. Being a teacher is not easy. Just being someone that's building people up. And I would say the most satisfaction I have is when I see a child or a teacher that might be going in one direction, that might be potentially leaving the profession, and getting them steered back and getting them excited about what they do, because I know the direct impact that it has on kids.
Yes. And what do you want to see more of for teachers? Because, the pay is definitely a debated subject for teachers. And, it's definitely a profession that you have to love, because in my opinion, I feel like it's a role that is taken definitely for granted. Yep. So what do you wish to see, for teachers, in the future, as far as, not just opportunities, but just the equity in it?
So I would say one of the things that I'm very intentional about is I've hired a lot of people to really, because I work in a school district or a school that has a very, very, very wide range of kids in the building. And I've been very intentional about seeking out more diverse staff, because I want that to mirror the population that we have in the school. Mm-hmm. One thing that I would hope that happens, and it's going to take a lot of intentionality from school leaders, is to attract and retain a wider population of teachers, because I think it's really important for kids to see themselves in the adults that they're working in. I also am really intentional about making sure that my staff present themselves professionally, because I think part of the reason why I think a lot of people don't value teachers is because sometimes we don't take our jobs, not that we don't work extremely hard and do extremely great things for kids, but we have to be very intentional about how we promote the profession. And I think when you present yourself professionally and you tell the story of what you're doing, and you seek out opportunities to bring the community in, they have a better understanding of what's really going on in schools. And I think one of the best things that came out of this pandemic is that a lot of parents had to take on the roles of being teachers. And I think it's really turned a light to the difficulties of working with young kids. So for a lot of people, I think one of the things that's going to come out of 2020, 2021, for parents that weren't really valuing and recognizing all of the nuances that come into teaching, they have a better sense of it because they had to do it themselves.
So what steps do you plan on taking as much as you can as principal in this school district to promote, diversity and inclusion, hope to see more of it in the city of Novi?
Yeah, I want to be the change that we expect to see in the rest of the world. So I always tell the staff, there's so many things that we can set the tone for neighboring schools. And I think we've done a really good job. I've been able to really identify people that want to champion this type of work. And we're at the point now as a school that, you know, initially when you come in as a new school leader, people are trying to get a sense of what's really important to you and what you want to establish as the foundation of your school. And I told the staff from when I first got here, I said, we're going to really focus on working together as a team. We're going to collaborate. We are going to celebrate diversity, and we are going to develop student leaders. Those were like 3 things that I always said I wanted to do, and good character within students. As far as like the work around diversity, equity, and inclusion, I've now identified teachers at every grade level. And in our building, we have a strong committee where we're doing that work. We are doing things on a monthly basis as a school, and we are working with outside consultants to make sure that the professional development that we're doing as a school, that's a staple in that work. And I believe as we do that in the school and I communicate the work that's going on in the building to our community, I think it starts to spread like wildfire. So, you know, the district has taken a stronger stance on this work because we've had a lot of community members that are championing this work. But for me as a building principal, I want to be a resource for other schools. I want to be a resource for other principals, but it starts here at Village Oaks. So if I get the staff to the point where they understand that this isn't just the flavor of the month, it's part of what we do as educators, it's part of how we develop our students, I do believe that word gets out. And, you know, being in a district like Novi, which is a flagship district, we do a lot of amazing things. I think this is the evolution of who we are as a school, or school district, I should say.
Yes. And I 100% agree. And I do encourage you and, you know, good luck to you in your efforts. I know that, you know, you're only just getting started in your place here in the Novi Community School District. Last question I want to ask you before we go to the rapid fire round. And, you know, it's Black History Month. That is the reason for this interview series. And so one question I want to ask you is, and I'm sure, you know, any kids who get to see this interview would like to know as well, is who is your favorite Black history icon and why?
So I recently did another interview where that question was asked of me, and it's such a big question because there's so many people that I respect and I admire. And right now, the reason why I'm going to tell you this, gentleman, it's not an educator. It's not someone that invented something. I say it's Muhammad Ali, and I'll tell you why it's Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
Right now we're in a bit of a fight. You know, this year has been such a rough and grueling year for so many different reasons. And I told my staff at the beginning of the year, we had to approach it with a certain mindset. And Muhammad Ali was a fighter. I mean, he was just a big personality. He told you what he was going to do. He did it with a lot of flair and a lot of charisma. And I find a lot of inspiration from Muhammad Ali right now during a challenging year, because you almost have to approach a challenge with an aggressive mindset, but you have to also have like and one of the things about Muhammad Ali, for people that are watching this that are boxing fans, he was such a technician. He was very elusive. He was a smooth guy. And I told my staff that our theme for this year is to be like water. I tell them we have to be flexible. We have to be able to kind of just take things as they come. And I think that was his style as a boxer, where he was able to do a lot of really cool things in the boxing ring. But more importantly, he was such a confident, proud Black man. And I think that's one of the things that you don't see a lot in today, for a lot of different reasons, where you don't see enough people that have a lot of pride in who they are, take a strong position on something and stand behind it. So from the standpoint of how he approached his craft as a boxer, I thought he was just an amazing boxer. But more importantly, I thought he stood for something. He brought a lot of pride to Black people, and he was very sincere and steadfast in what he believed. And I think I take a lot of admiration towards people that approach life like that.
Absolutely. And thank you for that awesome answer. Muhammad Ali, of course, he will definitely always go down in history as one of the greatest to ever do it.
He's a great man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful interview. But before we go, Dr. Ofili, we must do the rapid fire round.
Let's do it.
So Favorite thing to supervise as a teacher, recess or field trips?
Recess.
Okay.
For sure.
Any particular reason why?
So just being someone that loves, physical movement, being outside, I get it. I have a lot of joy in interacting with kids on a social level. So obviously we want kids to make gains academically, and we want kids to really hunker down and do what they need to do in the classroom. But I'd say that there's a lot of learning that takes place in a social environment. And that's one of the times when I'm able to interact with kids. It happens a lot of times in a social space, and recess is an opportunity for me to do that. So when I get outside, especially as it starts to warm up, I just really find a lot of joy in playing with kids and getting to know them outside during recess.
Social studies or reading and writing?
Ooh. All right, so I would say social studies. Oh no, that's a tough one. So the reason why I'm saying social studies is because I'm thinking about the history component. I just love learning about the past. I love learning about people that were really influential in our history. And what I love the most about growing up with my mom and dad, but my mom specifically, is she used to tell really great stories. And that's kind of like when I think about me when I was in the classroom, and even now when I work with teachers, I try to tell, like when I'm trying to give them a compelling reason to do something, I like to associate it with something that happened in the past by telling a story. And I think when I think about social studies, I think about history and past events that have kind of shaped our society. So I would go with that, even though I really do like to read and obviously teach students to read, and that's such a fundamental skill. So it's a tough question, but I would say social studies.
I'm sure I know it's like it's expected to say, oh, every subject, but I'm like, every teacher has a favorite subject. Right. I know every educator has a favorite one.
You're absolutely right.
COVID is over, the pandemic is over, awesomeness, and you finally get to go on a vacation, Dr. Ofili. Are you going to go to Italy, or are you going to go to the Dominican Republic?
So the Dominican Republic is where my wife and I went for our honeymoon, and it was such an amazing experience. And I told my wife the next time we take a trip, because we like to do like the all-inclusive resorts, that we were going to go back to the Dominican Republic. We just have I have a special place in my heart for that place. So if you were to ask me between those two places, definitely Dominican Republic.
Well, Dr. Ofili, thank you so much for this awesome interview. Thank you again for setting time out of your busy schedule to do this. I really do appreciate it.
Amber, it was a pleasure doing this interview. And I thank you for taking the time to highlight a lot of people in different professions, because I think one of the things that we need to do a better job of is kind of giving a bird's eye view to some of the things that people do, because there's a lot of young people that have no clue, and this could be something that would excite someone to possibly go into education. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
All right, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning into this interview, to this episode of the Black Heroes and Sheroes of Today interview series. Please comment below and let us know how you felt about this episode, and definitely stay tuned for the next one. With that said, bye.